My heart raced, and I could feel the prickle of sweat at my temples as I stood before the old crumbling house that once echoed with the sound of my childhood. The place I had longed to escape and had finally returned to, not because I was welcomed, but because I had something to prove. The tenebrous shadows of the past loomed around me, whispering reminders of the laughter, the derision, the scorn that had once drowned out my voice. Haunted architecture? You're going to ruin your life over a fairy tale? My father's words had been sharp, unyielding, like a knife driven into the soft, vulnerable core of my passion. You'll disgrace our family. We're not a bunch of lunatics. My mother's voice had trembled with disbelief, her face twisted in disdain. And my siblings? They had joined the chorus, echoing the sentiments that had chased me into the dark alleyways of my obsessive research, into the underbelly of the city itself. Years of work had led me here. I was once a lowly pest control officer, mocked for my belief that urban vermin, rats especially, were guardians of dark truths. After being dismissed from my job, I had devoted myself to uncovering the grotesque layers beneath this city, digging where others dared not tread. Underground burrows teeming with history and horror waited patiently for someone willing to face what the world wanted to remain buried. Now I was back, not as the disgraced failure they remembered, but as a renowned expert in occult pest archaeology. I had survived what most would call madness, delving into the grotesque, unearthing long-dead secrets, and mapping cursed territories. The darkness that clung to me now was no longer a hindrance, it was armor. As I stepped across the threshold, the scent of decay enveloped me, a familiar symphony of mildew and rot that sang to my senses. The air was thick, stagnant, and I felt it reach out, curling around me as if to embrace someone who had finally returned home. I raised my hand, ready to knock, but paused. A chill ran down my spine. The world outside had long dismissed me as crazy, but I could feel something stirring inside the house, something that had been waiting. I rapped lightly on the door. My heart thundered in my ears as I heard the shuffle of footsteps approaching from within. The door creaked open, revealing my mother, her expression a mix of shock and disbelief that quickly turned to irritation, as if she'd just found a pesky insect on her favorite rug. "Oh, it's you," she said, trying to mask her surprise with indifference. "What do you want?" I smiled, but it felt more like a grimace. "I'm here to talk. I need—" "Talk?" she interrupted. "You think you can come back here after all these years, prancing around with your delusions? We have no time for this." Before I could respond, my father emerged from the shadows behind her, his scowl deepening. "So, you've come to ruin us again, have you? We've moved on from your nonsense. We don't need any more crazy stories." Something inside me snapped. "You don't understand," I said, the words spilling out in a rush. "I've found something about the rats you refuse to believe in. They're not just vermin. They're guarding the unquiet dead." My voice rose, fueled by the weight of years spent beneath the ground, excavating horrors that whispered of hidden truths. "Enough!" my father shouted, and the force of his voice rattled the very foundation. "You're just proving our point. You've lost your mind." But I couldn't shake the sensation that something had stirred in the darkness of the house since I'd arrived. I felt it surging through the walls, as if the very ground beneath us was alive, aware of my presence. Suddenly, a low groan echoed through the air, a sound that rattled the bones. The walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and I could feel the temperature drop, the air thickening with dread. My family's expressions shifted from disbelief to fear as the shadows around us flickered and twisted. The moment I had been dreading, yet anticipating, arrived. From the darkened corners of the room, the unmistakable chitter of rats began to rise. A chaotic symphony crescendoing into a cacophony. They swarmed, pouring through the cracks, a tide of fur and beady eyes, swirling around my family in a furious dance, as if to showcase the horrors I had unearthed, the truths that had been hidden for far too long. "Get them away! Get them away!" my mother screamed, backing away against the wall, her eyes wide with terror. My father, once the pillar of strength, faltered as the tide of vermin surrounded him, their whispers echoing ominously in the air. I stood rooted to the spot, a mixture of dread and vindication flooding my veins. The rats streamed forth, revealing the layers of history that had been buried under their existence, remnants of a dark past that no one wanted to acknowledge. They bore witness to the sins of ignorance, of ridicule, and of fear. The chaos continued until an uneasy silence fell over us. The rats encircled my family, forming a living barrier, their beady eyes glinting with knowledge that had once eluded me. They had become the guardians of a truth my family had long dismissed, a warning of what loomed beneath the surface. As the last echoes of their frantic whispers faded, I turned to my family. "This is what you refuse to see. The world can no longer ignore the darkness that lives among us." Their faces paled, and I saw the dawning horror reflected in their eyes, the profound realization that they'd been blind to the shadows lurking in their own home. "I'm no longer your disgrace," I said softly, the chills creeping down my spine transforming into an unsettling calm. "I'm the warning you ignored." As I walked out, the weight of their disbelief hung heavy in the air behind me. I returned to my city, the shadows embracing me, knowing the truth would echo long after I had gone. Some horrors are meant to be faced, while others become sentences of shame, ones that could still be rewritten. If only you dared to dig deep enough to find them.